For today's project, we're going to use some high density LED lights that I got off Amazon. And as you can see, these are hit lights. Notice that they're cool white and there's 2.9 watts per foot. I elected to get the high density one because of the lighting requirements. Obviously, we're going to want as much light as possible on our project. And whether it's lighting a drill press table or a CNC machine or what have you, hit lights, I've had real good luck with them. The price is very reasonable on Amazon. What I like about them is they are cuttable with the scissors. You can either purchase the connectors to solder different lengths together. It has a peel and stick on the back, which is pretty convenient, and find it pretty handy for under cabinet lighting is what I've been using it for. Notice that this is a cool white. It's not the warm white like you would have for, say, accent lighting. And again, because I'm using it for lighting tool work areas, I would really like it to be as dense as possible and as bright as possible. So I went ahead and got the cool white. The hit lights, as you can see here, this is the type of spool that they come on. They come with a little barrel jack, and depending on whether you get just the lights themselves or the power pack with the lights, depending on whether you purchase the lights themselves, you can get these for about $12 or $13. I don't remember exactly what I paid on eBay. Or if you pay about $29, you can get it with the power pack, which comes with a dimmer. And as you can see, whenever I plug it in here, these are extremely bright. They are just overpowering. And you can imagine if you had these around your tool that you would get plenty of lighting indeed. So hopefully by the time we're done, we'll definitely be able to see that. They don't recommend running them too long with them in the pack like this, simply because they do get hot. They do get warm when they're in operation, just simply because of the density on them. But overall, they run very, very cool. In addition, for today's project, one of the things I purchased off of eBay, I believe they were about $1.99 each, is instead of using the power pack for such a small project that comes with the lights, this here is rated for 5 amps, which if I have a 6-inch strip of these lights is rather excessive for such a simple little lighting application. Also, I wanted something where I can put it in the tool enclosure itself to where the light comes on when the tool comes on. So I went on eBay and I found these little 12-volt DC 1 amp outputs, and amazingly enough, they happen to have just the correct size on the barrel for the lights. So that was a nice plus. And at $2 a piece, you don't mind buying a separate power supply for each tool that you have. Let me plug it in here and make sure it's the correct polarity. Let's see what happens. Well, I'll be dang. Doesn't seem to be as bright as the other power supply, but again, it's only supplying 1 amp. And this is a 15-foot roll of now notice it wasn't as bright as the with the smaller power supply, because this is a 3 meter, or roughly about 15 feet length of LEDs, and that consumes considerably more than the 1 amp that this little power supply can give it. So, but if we're only using, you know, about a foot off the LED strip, then that should be more than adequate for our purposes. So with that being said, let's get started. You'll notice that when we plugged it into the smaller power supply, the lights weren't quite as bright as they were with the larger power supply. But again, if we're only using about a foot of this lighting, anything up to about 5 feet, I believe the 1 amp power supply should be more than adequate. And again, I got that off of eBay for about $1.98, and I bought, actually, I have quite a few projects, so, and I have a lot of LED lighting, so I went ahead and purchased 5 of those little puppies. So, with that being said, let's move on to our project. Here is an example of some of the under cabinet lighting. In fact, this was one of the first projects I did. As you can see, there used to be an old fluorescent fixture right there. Didn't care for it too much, so went ahead and put these strips up there. Actually, I believe I had a friend do that initially, and you could tell he wasn't terribly straight on it. But as you come to the front, you can see that it's actually hidden. And that's really what I liked about it. I don't want the direct light, and again, that was the cool white lights that we used on that. And it's actually excellent under cabinet lighting, and I really like it. I recently put in the cabinet, and here I actually have 2 strips of the lighting for my workbench and washing machine. As you can see right here, I have a little dimmer. And over here is the power supply that came with the lighting. Now, because I'm using so much, I went with the larger power supply to be able to supply this. But this here was purchased as a kit, so it came with the power supply and a dimmer, which is kind of handy. And as you can tell, that gets quite bright indeed. I've checked the power consumption on this particular strip. For both of these, it consumes about 20 watts, so that's an absolutely incredible amount of even light that you get for 20 watts of power consumption. The LED lighting will be running up in this area here. So, let's get with that. Now for the fun part. The LED lighting comes on a strip, and it has an adhesive back on it. So all I'm going to do is measure out how much I want. And one thing you'll notice is that about every 3 inches on this LED strip, they have cut markers. And that'll be where you take a pair of scissors or what have you, so you can cut this to length. So I'm going to measure out about how much I think I need, and I found my cut line there. So again, using a pair of scissors, or here I'm just using some diagonals, go ahead and cut it to length. And mine will sit on there about like that. I think that'll be plenty. And I believe I'll have 2 strips. So while I'm got my cutters out, I'm just going to measure another one right about now. Yep, there it is. Now obviously we have one that has the power connector and another one that's just kind of hanging out there not doing anything. So we need to connect both of those. And to connect both of those, I've got this little short piece of wire that I've stripped off the ends. Not the best cut job, but again, it's industrial. We're not looking for perfection here. I'm going to tin the ends of these wires. And you don't need that much wire, and this wire might be actually a little heavy for this application. I prefer something a little thinner because it's only using a few watts. Kind of hard to do this with a camera on you. So there, we have that tinned. These wires are running a little long. So what I'm going to do is just snip them down to a little nub. Now, they do make connectors for this purpose. If you look here, you'll see that there's solder pads. And you'll see the top one is labeled plus and the other one minus. It's important that you get those correct. So we got our handy clamp. Back and trim that one back just a hair. It makes it a lot easier to solder these LED connections if the wires are exactly the same length, which I should have done before. I have to re-tin that one. That's alright. And if you're not comfortable with soldering, pick it up. It's a easy skill to learn. Or have one of your friends that's handy with electronics, go ahead and do it for you. Now I'm going to try to put this clamp in such a way that you can see what I'm doing, trying to keep it off the LEDs. There we go. I think that'll be a good way. So here I'm going to solder, put a little dab of solder on the pads. Too much coffee this morning, I see. You don't want to get these too hot now. Alright, and then remembering that we have a positive and a negative on there, so we'll put red to positive. And that one's on there good. Put black to negative. Again, keep your heat time on these LED strips to a minimum. You'll be alright. As you can see, the adhesive is still on the back. And I think, just for safety's sake, I'm just going to put a little piece of heat shrink tubing over that. Sorry about the background noise from before, but you look, we have our connection soldered nicely there. Doesn't look like I've damaged the LED. So, just for safety's sake, using our same trick, I'm going to put some of that heat shrink tubing right up on the edge of that LED, just covering the solder connection, but no more. And using our same trick with our lighter, just move it quickly. There. So we should be good to go there. Remembering that the strips are going to be attached. There's going to be two of them. So I'm going to have them feed like this. So I'm just going to take that wire and run it around. And again, making sure positive and negative are correctly aligned. So in this case, it'll have to be this way. So I'm going to use the same method as before. Clamp her up. This wire, again, is a little thick for this application, so it's not quite as bendable as I would like it. I've heard from some people that said that the tape, although it's 3M tape on the back of the light strip, and it's really good, some people have told me that over time it can come loose from certain surfaces. And if that happens to you, you can always go back after the fact. Now see, what I didn't do before I soldered that on there, I didn't put my heat shrink on. That wouldn't be the first time I've done that. Let that cool off a little bit. If you don't let it cool before you put the heat shrink on there, I could have just came the other way, come to think of it, but So again, using the same technique, get it heated down to that pad. And same thing on the negative. Wiggle it a little bit to make sure that the connection's good. Another mistake I made early on, many years ago, is failing to wait for the solder joint to cool before I slide the heat shrink. A lot of times you'll get to about there the heat from the soldering will instantly shrink the heat shrink before you get a chance to put it all the way over. So I just want to wait that out a little bit. Again, using our same deal there. Take our lighter, push it up on it a little bit. There, good enough for government work. Now for the fun part. I know that my power barrel is going to be on the opposite side. It's going to be on the opposite side of the machine. So I want my barrel to be on the back, like that. Alright, now for the fun part, we remove the strip, or the adhesive covering. You try not to get your fingers on it, or as little as possible. And you just set it in there and press it into place. And remember, this is pointing down, the LEDs are pointing down, so they won't really blind you when you're using the bandsaw, but they should give you plenty of light. Alright, first strip is in place. I'm going to put a little bend in my wiring here so I can take the stress off the strip itself. Again, we pull that strip off. Making sure you get it where you want it. I'm spacing them fairly wide on this to get a good light spread. Alright. Then we just press it on there real good. Let's get her buttoned up. Power it up and see how it goes. Okay, now that we're done with our wiring, I don't know if you can see it over here. I'm not very good with camera positioning, but here we have our connector coming from the top of the bandsaw. We have a little clip right there that comes with the lights. It's not locking, unfortunately, but that's okay. We'll just plug that in. And I want most of this to remain hidden. You could use some tie wraps, but I want this to be pretty permanent installation. So I'm just going to dab some hot glue on there. Yeah, it's hot. Moment for that to cool. Be pretty generous with this. I don't like the look of tie wraps all that much. So all I'm going to do is just kind of tack it. The power cord going up, you can't see this right now, I'm going up towards the top of the tower. But as you can see, on a stationary tool, that actually makes a fairly decent mount. Should be all finished up, ready to go. Let's try it out, see how it works. Alrighty, well, the saw's mounted back in its normal place now, and time to give it the challenge, see if it's going to work. Oh yeah. Much better. See if we can show what it looks like up underneath. You see, we've got more than enough light, and we got a little shadow, but we got a little shadow from where it's at. We got my knot cut. Goes out of the top of the tool, and whenever you turn the tool off, light goes off. Tool comes on, light's on. Always there, never have to worry about a battery. And that, folks, is how you add LED lighting to your power tool project. So if you're lacking light, about $3 worth of materials, and we're good to go. Thanks for watching.